Good morning, everyone. It's truly an honor to be opening this year's AIC conference. My name is Bianca Garcia, and I am here today sharing on behalf of my team at the Balboa Art Conservation Center, where I am Associate Painting Conservator, Programs Manager, and member of a collaborative leadership team that has spent the last 5 years working to transform our organization from the inside out. I'm excited to share some reflections with you, part story, part provocation, on how we think about regional centers, our role in the art conservation ecosystem, and in conservation today. We'll start with a foundational question. What is a regional center? This is a question that I've heard repeatedly, both from colleagues and from community partners. It's a simple question, but the answer is far from clear. The staff at the Balboa Art Conservation Center, myself included, have been redefining this for ourselves. It is in the exploration of our identity as a regional center, in defining what this means for us, that we found the space to engage in transformational leadership work. While there's no official definition of what a regional center is, for the most part, regional centers are nonprofit organizations that serve the conservation and collections care needs of museums, collecting entities, and individuals in a defined geographical region. The first regional center was the Inter-Museum Conservation Association, established in Oberlin, Ohio in 1952. ICA became the model used by the National Endowment for the Arts when it incentivized a network of similar centers across the United States in the 70s. These centers were meant to function as a shared resource, providing museum-quality art conservation services to various collections, as well as training for the emerging conservation students coming out of the newly established graduate programs. At its peak, there were about 14 centers, and today, BACC is one of 11 regional centers left. BACC was founded in 1975 by George Stout and Richard Buck as a shared conservation lab in San Diego between 3 major collecting institutions. It quickly grew into an independent regional center that served many of the collecting entities in San Diego and eventually expanded its reach throughout the Western region. But for decades, our nonprofit identity was more in name than actual. We offered museum-quality conservation services to collecting nonprofits, its members, and the general public, operating as a high-capacity, technically skilled, but exclusive organization that was not too different from the services provided by private practice. That exclusivity wasn't incidental. It was structural, it was intentional, and it wasn't very nonprofit-like. What happens when nonprofits become self-aware? What is the process of confronting the things that make us feel icky? For BACC, our limited organizational mandate had become our failing business model, and both required a long moment of reflection. I mentioned earlier that the way BACC operated in the past was not too different from private practice, and this was largely due to its failure to recognize itself as a nonprofit. As nonprofits, we have both opportunities and responsibilities. We have the opportunity to access grant funding, and this isn't just a perk, it's an obligation that keeps us accessible. If the majority of an organization's operating funds come from earned revenue, and that means the money that is earned from clients through services and treatment, then what happens to those who can't pay? BACC was so over-reliant on earned revenue that it needed every interaction with the public to yield payment. This meant that we were accessible only to those who could afford our services. Nonprofits have the responsibility to be in service to the public good. But our historical decisions to focus on earned revenue, and to that end, to prioritize only paintings and paper as the most attractive to paying customers, kept us from this. For all of our technical skills and institutional prestige, we weren't available to the broader public, or even smaller museums, tribal groups, or community archives. Self-awareness means admitting that exclusion doesn't just happen. There are machinations at work so deeply embedded in our institutional identities that they feel unintentional sometimes, but they are not. It takes effort and intentionality to be exclusive, just like it takes effort and intentionality to be inclusive. Armed with all these tough questions and self-reflections, BACC entered a turning point of a year, 2020, with a sense of urgency and determination. We had a global pandemic and everything changed. Our workplaces, our audiences, our engagements, our policies, our fundings, our organizational model. Everything all of a sudden required a complete reassessment. And we were like, yeah, bring it. The pandemic triggered a recession which deeply affected our already weak business model. Sources which had long been the focus of our earned revenue, like museums and private clients, were severely impacted. Major changes happened in philanthropic priorities, strains on materials, and labor. Our business model all of a sudden required a complete reassessment, and we're like, yeah, bring it. We had a long time coming national racial reckoning that forced us to examine how did we get here? How has BACC contributed to and benefited from a society that prioritizes and values the lives, cultures, and comforts of whiteness at the expense of Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the global majority? How has the role that art conservation has played in the erasure of communities via neglect held space for this violence? And how do we even begin to incite change? Our relationship to community, our commitment to this work required a complete reassessment, and we were like, yes, bring it. All of this happened right in the middle of a leadership vacuum. Our longtime director retired after 37 years of service in 2019, and a new leadership search was delayed due to COVID, leaving BACC ED-less for over a year. While we had no leader, we were not leadership-less. In the absence of a director, the staff stepped up to ensure the continued operations of the organization, navigating the entirety of 2020, and most importantly, beginning to craft a vision for the kind of organizational mission we wanted BACC to be worthy of, including informing the criteria for a new leadership search that centered a commitment to community, equity, and inclusion. Through this process, the staff at BACC had the rare opportunity to model and answer for an important question. Who gets to visualize the future of the field? And so began, in commitment to community, a journey into radical inclusion. The questions that helped us chart a path forward for BACC were, what does it mean to be a regional center? What does it mean to be a nonprofit? What does sustainability look like? What does relevance look like? What does inclusion look like? And what does justice look like? We immediately launched new programs like Preserve Community Art, which documented and protected protest posters and murals. We began to engage our community not as clients, but as partners. We opened our doors to all. These programs showed us a different path, one that reconnected us to our purpose. We found our voice and advocated fiercely for a field that is relevant and accessible to all of our communities. Those initial efforts to demystify and democratize conservation were noticed by our philanthropic partners, who have supported BACC's transformative leadership. In 2022, the Mellon Foundation awarded BACC $1 million to support our transformation. Our goal? To arrive to our 50th anniversary in 2025 as an organization that is both sustainable and inclusive. To achieve this, we committed to demystify and build awareness about conservation and its role in the larger cultural ecosystem. To introduce the field of conservation and related fields as a career path to a more diverse audience. To ensure that collections from all communities have access to conservation and preservation services, and that those services are culturally relevant and responsive to those communities. And to build a positive and equitable workplace culture by investing in the livelihood and leadership development of its team, becoming a model for the re-envisioning of human resource policy, compensation, and hiring practices from an anti-racism and equity lens. And here we are now. The year is 2025, and we are proud to report that we have achieved sustainability, not in spite, but because we are inclusive. We have delivered on our goals in powerful ways. Through expanding our service areas and objects and preventive, as well as through community conservation projects, community consultation days, and expanding the demographic of our institutional membership program to reflect our region's diversity. With the establishment of award-winning programs like Train the Trainer, school tours to the labs, conservator visits to the classrooms, and partnerships with schools and community organizations from San Diego's many diverse communities. Through our workforce development programs, Our Previs Foundation-funded Art Conservation Internship cohort is the first of its kind for our region, incentivized by the goal of ushering greater cultural and geographic diversity into the field, as well as democratizing conservation knowledge for use in community outside of the formalized field. Through work like our California Inclusive Preservation Program, which is building capacity for collections caretakers from all over California. And through the development of a radically inclusive and responsive workspace culture. Over the past 4 years, compensation for our team has increased by about 50%. Hybrid positions have been introduced to support leadership cultivation from within the field, and the team is actively engaged in building safe spaces and holding the organization accountable to these values. These are just some examples of the work that BACC is now doing every day, but our impact and the ripple effect of this work is deeply continuous. Conservation for us now is so much more than transactional service. It is shared stewardship. We still do excellent treatment, and now we also train, collaborate, and build capacity in places that were once overlooked. We acknowledge the harm of our past exclusivity and are working to shift how the field defines value and expertise. Who gets to decide what conservation is? Who is it for? And what would it mean for our institutions to not just be technically excellent, but socially relevant? Our vision for the future is rooted in community. As a regional center, we can practice community, but can we become community? When we center cultural preservation as a collective responsibility, not as saviors and not as charity, the work changes. When we commit to change so deep that it eliminates the all too familiar concept of us and them, the work feels different. And it asks something of all of us. It's solidarity. And that solidarity requires courage, boldness, vulnerability, and integrity. At BACC, we don't just work in commitment to community. We are community. Our staff is community. Our board is community. Our work is community, all of it. Our CIPP cohort and our passive internship cohort. Our organization has undergone a radical transformation in the past 5 years, and we are so much stronger today because of it. In this space, the possibilities are truly endless, and our only limits are those we impose on ourselves, beholden to tradition and preconceived notions of what we can and cannot do. Faced with a lack of definition and clear boundaries, the worst we can do is box ourselves in and draw territorial lines. The best we can do is recognize our ability to lead ourselves into safer spaces. And that, too, is an act of leadership. Not the kind that waits for permission or clings to tradition, but the kind that redefines what is possible. For too long, we've upheld narrow definitions of expertise, of value, of who gets to lead. We've treated leadership as something distant. We do the work, we treat, we bend, but someone else leads at the top, someone who looks and acts different. If we've accomplished anything at BACC, it is to dispel that idea. The past 5 years have taught us that transformation doesn't come from doing more of the same. It comes from radical honesty, from reimagining the structures we've inherited, from believing that this field, our field, can be more just, more inclusive, and more relevant. And it takes boldness, not just in our work, but in our vision. We are all the leaders we've been waiting for. So my invitation to you is this. Let's stop asking what conservation has been and start asking what it could be. Thank you.